Hi everyone. So my name is James. I'm here with Oscar, Mike and Mal, and together we are 90 Wine Problems. Look, let's face facts. Knowing what wine to have at a meal or in a shop is actually a really difficult thing, and many of you will have faced a scenario that I'm about to play to you. You're in a nice restaurant. You're at a date with a special someone, and things are going very well. And then it comes to the wine, and you don't know what to do. You just basically guess. The wine waiter gives you that look like you don't know what the hell you're doing, and your date knows exactly, and you're not going home happy. That's basically where our app comes in. 90 Wine Problems is a phone-first, mobile-first app which allows you to make a much more informed decision on your wine choices based on the food that you're eating that evening. As you can see, you put the food in at the top, and then we have these 5 sliders which represent the 5 different food profiles to select what kind of dish you're having. So we have sweetness, umami, which is essentially another word for salty, spiciness, sourness, and finally bitterness. You click submit and voila, there's 2 bottles of wine that have been recommended. You have a look on the wine list, you pick that one, and Mal's happy lad. While this is a very slick and sleek app, there's actually a hell of a lot going on behind the scenes. I'm going to pass over to Oscar to explain exactly what that is.
So, food and wine flavors are really complex. You saw the 5 flavors in the sliders just before. What you didn't see is that there are 11 relationships between the flavors. That just makes this a heck of a complex domain. And it meant that our app had to essentially take an infinite combination of flavors as inputs, which it does. Wine is worse. Wine is more complex. That chart is an incomplete list of things that people inconsistently say about wine. So what that meant was that we had to invent our own way of thinking about wine and talking about wine, and so we just invented our own, which is based on 7 major flavors of wine that allows you to describe pretty much any type of wine. And with that, I'd like to hand you over to Mike to talk about how we do the pairing.
Thank you, Oscar. So I've got the boring bit, so I do apologise. Yes, food and wine is very complicated. So we created our own algorithm. We rate the food flavours. We eliminate any weak flavours of that food that has been selected, as we didn't think they were important. We then rank those flavours left over from most important to least important. So looking at the ceviche example, we had sour that was most important, so that's something we had to consider. We then applied our rules of thumb, or our heuristics, to each flavour, and then considered those interactions that you saw earlier before sending the query to the database to match the wine. For example, with the algorithmic interactions, we have a sweet food that would typically ask, or typically suggest, a sweet wine. However, if you have a spicy food, you want a less sweet wine. So what do you do when you've got a food that is spicy and sweet? Our algorithm takes all of that into account. Now, to move on from the boring maths, I'll pass you back over to something more interesting. Hand you over to Mal.
Cheers, Mike. Apologies for Mike making wine boring. So I'm going to just quickly run you through our struggles and our successes. So basically our initial struggle is all based on over-ambition. Like, we were going to change the world with a wine app. You saw Prescriptable, you saw how hard an iOS app was to build. We were going to build an iOS app that would scan wine menus like this, would take the image, the data out, would feed in a wine API, it was going to feed in food API. By the end of it, it was going to, it could have cured you cold, never mind match your food to wine. So it was hugely overambitious, and that causes a massive, massive problem the first 2 days. Luckily, you'll know a lot of these now by the end of, after all the previous presentations, you know the buzzwords. So the agile methodologies that Makers taught us over the 10 weeks really helped us solve a lot of these problems. The first 2 days when we were trying to learn the image recognition were a nightmare. We didn't get anywhere with that. The algorithm was way too difficult. And it's the retros and the stand-ups that we went through every day which really helped keep the communication up and make sure we knew that, look, this isn't going to work. Let's just change what we're doing, change the technology. And we just went back to a simple Ruby on Rails app And then as soon as we did that, we got the MVP out in 2 days. Like Jamie mentioned, we built a mobile-first app. We did all the design ourselves. There's no frameworks. We just focused really hard on the CSS ourselves. And finally, we're the official catering partner of this evening. All your wines have been perfectly matched to the pizza that you've got coming. So don't worry, your palates have been taken care of this evening. Finally, you're all here. We just thought we'd throw a pitch in the mix. Just 250k, it's a small ask, we know, but look, it's £8 a pot, we need to get this money back somehow. So, look, literally off the charts there, users are flying, everyone's using it. Thanks for listening.